My salutations to all the seekers of Bhagavad Gita. Welcome back to the fourth session of the Gita Odyssey live course. Right now, we are doing our first course in the Gita Odyssey series, and the first course is First Step into Bhagavad Gita. This course closely aligns with the book we published, First Step into Bhagavad Gita. Today is our fourth session. The first topic we have been unfolding as part of this course is the foundations required for a meaningful study. We need to be grounded on certain foundational ideas so that you get the key to unlock Gita as we move forward. Today, we are going to continue that discussion. In the foundations, we are going to cover two major topics. One is what exactly is the spiritual roadmap laid out by the Bhagavad Gita? Because if it is addressing that fundamental human problem, what exactly is the roadmap set by the Bhagavad Gita? And what are all the key obstacles that this roadmap or this particular structure is going to address? Because it's very important to understand that high level overview, because we are going to take a top-down approach. We are going to see why we are studying it and what exactly, how it exactly it is approaching that scope. So that is very important. And then we are going to address a very foundational question, how one should study the Bhagavad Gita. So these are the two topics we are going to address. So the first topic we are going to cover today is the spiritual roadmap of the Bhagavad Gita. So if you remember, we started this program by addressing why should I study Bhagavad Gita? We said that we have seen that the science has changed the lifestyle of the human being. Each one of us, ordinary people of the modern world, can afford to have the luxury of a king or an emperor used to have in the olden times. But we found that in spite of that progress, we thought that, okay, by getting all these material comforts, we will be authentically happy, we will be contented. But we found that based upon the real statistics published by various government bodies, we found that the happiness is still far away. In fact, we have more stress issues, more challenges in the modern world. In the olden days, they used to have a very slow-paced lifestyle. In the modern world, we have a fast-paced lifestyle. We have all the comforts, but the happiness is still not there. So something is missing. And we try to change the entire external world, thinking that, okay, by changing our lifestyle, by changing our comfort, we are going to have that authentic happiness. And we proved that, yes, the comfort is there, but the happiness is still a problem. And we think that by changing the external world, we can be happy, contented. That is not correct. The problem is, one thing is that we don't have control over the external circumstances always. So when something goes in, if my happiness is dependent upon that, my happiness is also gone. And we know for sure that nothing is going to stay permanent. For example, your own health. As the time goes by, your own health is going to deteriorate. We know that for sure. We know that the relationship will have issue. We know that the finance will have issue. We know that the families will have, in family, we will have issues. We know that in society, there will be issue. And each of these things can potentially pull away my happiness and pull away my well-being. So if I wanted to be resilient, if I wanted to be happiness, whatever change I do in the external world, it may not be good enough. So the message of the Bhagavad Gita is, yes, you have to change the world. You have to change the circumstances, but don't think that your happiness will be permanent. And that is why we think that even if you go to heaven, by definition, heaven will have all the material progress in its maximum form. Even if you go to heaven, you will have heavenly problems because you will find something to get depressed. So what is the solution? The solution addressed by the Gita is you change. You will see that the world will change. So the focus of the Bhagavad Gita is how can I change myself? What change I can make within myself so that I can discover that authentic happiness. I can find that efficiency in action because right now, if my capability is 10, I operate in 2 efficiency level. Most of the times, I am affected by the past worries and the future anxieties. What is the result of that? It is going to affect my present and it is going to affect my efficiency. So, in spite of all these comforts and all these technological changes, I'm not seeing the authentic happiness. I'm not seeing that efficiency in my action. And I'm always affected by stress. I don't have to explain you. The silent killer of the 21st century is stress. And this is a problem. So, what we can do to have an effective life, what changes I can make in myself so that I can get all these authentic happiness, efficiency in action, stress under control, and how can I discover my true self? Because if I have a wrong understanding about myself, what is going to happen? The feeling I have, the thoughts I have, the work I do, everything will be dependent upon that wrong understanding of myself. It is important to have that authentic understanding, correct understanding of myself. I'll pause and just tell a story. Swami Chinmayananda used to say, we always try to change the world, thinking that we can always strike that balance. Swami Chinmayananda used to say that it is keeping some 15 kittens in a queue. You keep the first kitten, and by the time you keep that 15 kitten, the first kitten is always gone. So you try to make sure that your health is good, your relationships is good, your friendship is good, your finance is good. By the time you fix one, you know that something else is gone. And this is the problem. So what is the solution? You try to change yourself. So Swami Chinmayananda always used to say, he even had one series of lecture series called You Change. The message is, if you change, the world will change. And he used to give a beautiful story. There was a naughty child and a father. And the father wanted to give some work to this child. So he found a newspaper clipping. This newspaper clipping had the map of the world, the entire world. So what the father did was, he tiered each country separately, right? So he cut India separately, he cut United States separately, and actually he just shuffled. And as the child, you come back fixing the whole world. The father thought, actually, I can sleep for the next 3 hours peacefully. To this father's surprise, the child came back in 5 minutes. The father said, did you do the job? The child said, look, you verify yourself. And the father checked and he found every country exactly in the same place. He got surprised. How can you do this in 5 minutes? So he asked, so you have a strong understanding of the geography and your teacher might be the best. The child answered, no, this is the worst subject I have ever seen. And I have zero knowledge about the geography. So if that is the case, how can you do this? He said, the other side of the paper, there was a picture of Amitabh Bachchan. What the child did was, he just fixed the eyes and ears and the nose of Amitabh Bachchan. And automatically the whole map got fixed. So like that, Swamiji tells, the world has another side, which is me. And if you try to fix me, what is going to happen? You see that the world is fixed. Instead, if you go and try to fix the world, it will never end. Whereas I can always fix myself. So this is Gita's focus. Gita is prescribing me a lifestyle program. And what is the beauty of this program? It is focused on that authentic happiness, and it is going to help me to achieve efficiency in action, and it is going to give me that liberation from the binding attachments, and it is going to give me the mastery over the mind, and eventually it is going to lead me to the self-realization. So this is the spiritual roadmap of the Bhagavad Gita. So the first thing, I can put this into 3 buckets. The first focus of the Bhagavad Gita is to give you that mental purity. When I say mental purity, don't think that your mental mind is completely impure. The mental purity refers to the binding attachment. Usually what happens, we are always attached to something, and that is normal. I'm attached to my child, I'm attached to my job, I'm attached to my relationship. That's all understandable. But the binding attachment, if I think that everything in me is depending upon that particular object or that particular state or that particular person, that is called binding attachment. And when you have that binding attachment, you cannot freely and we cannot freely act. You cannot freely engage. You cannot live your life freely. Always you will have worry and anxiety. So the first step and the worry, the result of this binding attachment, our scriptures say that there are 6 internal enemies. They say that kama, krodha, moha, lobha, mada, and malsarya. This appears to be Sanskrit terms. This appears to be mystical term. But if you translate that to your life, what exactly is kama? Kama is not desire. You need, if you want to live your life in this world, you need to have some desire. But the problem is that extreme desire that I think that without that object, I cannot live. That is kama here. Krodha means rage, not anger. Everybody in this world get angry once or while. That's okay. As long as the anger is in me, it's okay. But if the anger is going to control me, that's a problem. The rage is that anger which goes beyond that control limits. Kama, krodha, moha is delusion. Because of this binding attachment, what happens? I don't see what is happening in the world. I will create my own picture of the world and I will act. So that is moha, lobha, mada, and mascharya, the greed, the jealousy, and all these things are beyond control. And that unhealthy competition. Competition is always good, but the unhealthy competition is never good. So this is the 6-fold enemies, internal enemies, resulting from that mental binding attachments. So the first focus of the Bhagavad Gita is to purify my mind from all these binding attachments and all these internal enemies, so that I can see things as they are, so that I can engage in things as they are, so I can act without any problem. So the freedom in action, that is what the term used by Bhagavad Gita. So the first focus in the roadmap is the mental purity. The second one is what? Even if my mind is pure, my mind is not, if my mind is not controlled, it is a problem. Because usually what happens, the thoughts comes to my mind. I don't have control over my thoughts. So you need to occupy yourself with the skill of gaining control over my thoughts. So the first part is gaining purity on the mind. The second thing is gaining control of the mind. I should be able to focus on what I am doing. I should be able to bring my attention to where I want, not where the mind takes me. It's not that the mind is taking control over me. I want to take control over the mind. The mind is the greatest tool given to humanity. But the problem is, if I don't have the greatest control over the greatest tool, what is going to happen? It is going to get into a problem. So mental purity is the first goal of the Bhagavad. The second goal is the mental stability. And the third goal is the self-realization. Knowing that, because I want to know my own true nature. Because without knowing me properly, I don't know who I am, what I am. I cannot find that authentic happiness. So this is the 3-staged approach laid out by Bhagavad Gita. And mind you, this approach I'm talking is from the perspective of Advaita Vedanta. So the Advaita Vedanta tells me that the Bhagavad Gita, the 3 major goals laid out by the Bhagavad Gita, or the roadmap of the Bhagavad Gita, every shloka in the Bhagavad Gita is going to address one of these goals: mental purity, mental stability, and finally the self-realization. So this is the roadmap of the Bhagavad Gita. Let's continue. So when we walk in a spiritual path, right, with a goal of achieving mental purity, mental stability, and finally what you call the self unawareness. What are the obstacles in my path? You can see that a person is walking, but there are so much of obstacles in this path. The Gita clearly tells. First one is mala, as we said, the mental impurities, the binding attachment. The second one is called vikshepa, which is the mental turbulence. I'm just giving you the technical term. We are going to expound this topic a little bit later. as we come into different shlokas and chapters. So mala is impurities, vikshepa is the mental turbulence, and finally avarana is the veil that blocks our vision of ourselves. So mental purity is affecting me, the mental turbulence is affecting me, and the veil of ignorance is affecting me. Remember, connect with the other goals we talked earlier. The first one is you wanted to gain the mental purity. When you gain the mental purity, you are addressing the first problem, first obstacle in your spiritual path, which is mala. Technically, it is known as mala nivritti. Mala nivritti is you are purifying your mind. And the second one, it is known as vikshepa, which is turbulence. You are addressing your mental turbulence and you are trying to create a clear, a pure, and a calm and a controlled mind. And finally, the avarana. Avarana is you are gaining the knowledge so that the veil of ignorance is gone. So this is the obstacles in the spiritual path. So if that is the, let's try to understand each one of this little bit detail. What is impurities mala? We said it is the cloud of thoughts that sways away my actions. The simplest example is imagine that you have a lake and that lake has muddy water. You are trying to see the bottom of that lake. Even if there is a diamond lying in the bottom of that lake, you will not be able to see. Why? Because your vision is obstructed by the dirt or the impurity. Like that, if my mind has that binding attachment, I cannot find that authentic happiness which the scriptures talks. And all of us say that, okay, the authentic happiness is within me. But why am I not seeing it? Why am I not experiencing it? Because of this dirt and the impurities. And as a result, what is going to happen? I get anxious, I get despair, and a lot of choices I make will be constrained by the wrong understanding because I don't have that freedom to make deliberate decisions. My own attachment, my own binding attachment. Let's say that I'm attached to food. What is going to happen? I cannot make the right choice. The right choice is eat healthy. Because of my binding attachment to certain food, what is going to happen? I may compromise. Let's say that I'm blindly attached to some person. What happens? I may make shortcut in my life. Or I'll be very anxious when something happens, or every day I'll be very anxious. So what happens? As a result, my choices will be constrained. And another thing is the repetitive patterns. It creates certain habits because of this worry and anxiety. And this will repetitively manifest in my life. And what another result is, this mala is going to block my potential. Meaning, as I said, I can work very hard if I can focus on the task in my hand. But what happens? My focus is never stay there because of this worry and anxiety. Because what happens? If you want the best result for your action, you need to put the best effort in the present. Because the result comes in the future. And that result definitely will be influenced by the quality of work and the quality of effort I put in the present. And if I am overly anxious and if I'm overly worried about the past, what is going to happen? It is going to affect my ability to put my best in the present. And if I don't put my best in the present, definitely it is going to affect my potential. This is the problem with the mala. First obstacle. And the second obstacle is called vikshepa, which is the mental turbulence. What happens? It is like, imagine like a lake which is full of waves. And even the water is pure. If the lake has a lot of waves, what is going to happen? It cannot have that, you cannot have the view of the bottom because you will only see the distorted image. So this mind, if the thoughts are like a turbulent lake, what is going to happen? One thoughts will come. It will lead inconsistent emotions and it will prevent you from proper decision making. And it will reduce the productivity because you have no control over the mind. It is called associated thinking. From one thought, it will go to the other thought, to the other thought, other thought. It will reduce productivity. And it will be the biggest obstacle in achieving all your goals. This is vikshepa. And all the compromised fulfillment, this distraction, you can even Google how much distraction is costing the corporates. So this is the problem with vikshepa. So this mala and vikshepa, the binding attachment and the mental turbulence, is you need to address these problems. even if you are not spiritual. Let's say that you have a higher goal in your life, a material goal. Let's say that you want to get a PhD, or you wanted to get into the CEO of a company, or you wanted to gain that skill. If you have this binding attachment and if you have this mental turbulence, it will prevent you from achieving that goal. So whatever practice prescribed by Gita to address your binding attachment and the mental turbulence, it is needed for anybody in this world pursuing any goal, because this a stable mind, a calm mind, a productive mind, a controlled mind is a prerequisite to pursue any goals of your life. So even if you don't believe in Krishna, even if you don't believe in the higher purpose of your life, this is a prerequisite for every human being. So that's why, meaning you see that why Bhagavad Gita is used in the corporate world, why Bhagavad Gita is used in the business world. It is not talking about the self-realization. It is not talking about the spiritual aspect, but these two steps. Whatever practice is given by Bhagavad Gita to address this binding attachment, it is part of emotional intelligence. It is part of this like effective working, right? The energy leadership. All these theories in the modern management, you can see same content or similar content. And the mind management technique of the Bhagavad Gita, meaning probably we know that the meditation, how popular it is in corporates, how popular it is in the academic field, how popular it is in the medical field. But the best definition of meditation, you see in the Bhagavad Gita, and you won't see any improvement of that definition even after 5,000 years. So this is Mala and Vikshepa. And finally, we'll quickly talk about Avarana. Avarana is the veil of ignorance, because you don't know this is a hypothesis Gita put forth. Gita tells that the fundamental cause of all my problem is your wrong understanding of yourself. Imagine that you don't understand properly, right? For example, a simple example, if you have a wrong understanding, your thought, your feeling, and your actions will be dependent upon that. A simple example. Last week also we just touched on that example. Let's say that you are walking in a dark road and you see a snake in that road. Let's say that there was a rope lying down and you mistake that rope as a snake. Imagine that. So what exactly you are saying? I am seeing a snake. But what exactly is lying down? It's a rope. So what exactly is going to be my response? Am I responding towards a rope or am I responding towards a snake? If I know that it is a rope, it is not going to create fear in me. It is not going to create anxiety in me. It is not going to create heart attack in me. But if I take the rope as a snake, what is going to happen? It is going to create fear in me. It is going to create anxiety in me. And sometimes it can even create heart attack in me. So you need to understand that it's not what exactly exists in the world. It is not what exactly is the truth that we respond. We respond to our understanding of the truth. The truth may be A and my understanding is A dash. I am always going to respond about A dash, not towards A. So if there is a delta or if there is a difference between the reality of myself and what I understand as myself, I will always be seeking and responding, thinking and feeling about my own wrong understanding. So this is the problem of ignorance, because the Gita tells me that my true nature is the consciousness. We are going to use high terms right now, which we may not be able to relate to that. We are going to relate to that when we go to the chapter 2. But understand that Gita tells me that my understanding of myself has some problem. And unless you don't fix it, everything you do in your life is based upon your own wrong understanding. So that is why you are missing that authentic happiness, which is your own true nature. And you get confused and you get disconnected from your own true self because of that wrong understanding. And the inner fulfillment, in spite of that material progress, why we are lacking that inner fulfillment? It is because of that wrong understanding of myself. And this avarana is blocking this path of self-discovery and This is going to help me to understand myself and find that true happiness. So, what exactly is the set of practices Bhagavad Gita is offering us? So, we identified three problems. The first problem is mala, which is the mental impurities or the binding attachment. And the second one is vikshepa, which is the mental turbulence or the mental, the uncontrolled thoughts in my mind. And finally, avarana, which is the veil of ignorance because I have a wrong self understanding about myself. So, Bhagavad Gita mainly gives three practices. The first practice is known as Karma Yoga. Karma Yoga is proper work with proper action. We are going to elaborate this topic by connecting with your life when we go to chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4, chapter 5, and chapter 18. So, this practice is going to help me with very easily following steps. Don't think that this is mystical. You can start Karma Yoga tomorrow. The basic idea of Karma Yoga is the day-to-day actions I do for a living. For example, this class, meaning for whatever work I do, or any actions I do for my living, for my entertainment, for my social interaction, that very action can be used as a means for my mental purification, and those very actions can be used as a means of worship. This is a revolutionary teaching offered by the Bhagavad Gita. And what is the benefit of Karma Yoga? Mala Nivritti. It purifies my mental impurities. It gives me freedom from that binding attachments. So this is Karma Yoga. And the second practice is Upasana Yoga. Upasana Yoga is the mind management. All the meditation practices, all the prayers, all the devotional practices, everything helps me to focus my mind and eventually gaining control over my mental activity. The same idea comes here. How can I develop a new skill so that I take control over my mind rather than my mind is going to control me? So this is Upasana Yoga. And finally, Jnana Yoga. If the problem is ignorance, the only solution is knowledge. So how can I gain that knowledge of myself? What is the process of understanding my true nature? This is Jnana Yoga. So the Karma Yoga is going to take care of the Mala, problem of Mala, mental impurities. And Upasana Yoga is going to take care of the Vikshepa, which is mental turbulence. And the Jnana Yoga is going to take care of the problem of the veil of ignorance, wrong understanding about myself. So this is what is the spiritual roadmap of the Bhagavad Gita. Because this Karma Yoga, Upasana Yoga together constitute the entire yoga practice. You may say that, okay, where is the Bhakti Yoga? Where is the Hatha Yoga? Where is the Nada Yoga? Where is the Dhyana Yoga? All the yogas you hear, 80 or 100 plus yogas you hear, it can be folded into either Karma Yoga or Upasana Yoga. So that is what it is. And we are going to have a clear discussion on these topics later. But this is the step-by-step roadmap laid out by the Bhagavad Gita. At this point of time, I want to request Avanti Kundalia, who is there here. She can give a quick supplement of this topic.
Namaskar. Beautifully covered. I mean, there's nothing more to add, just maybe some a story here and a story there to just accentuate what's already been said and make it more practical. Am I audible?
Yeah, you are. You're audible.
So, what Rajesh ji started this class with is very true. The entire life that we lead, we look to change things outside. And the Bhagavad Gita is this one text which flips the coin completely and just focuses on changing ourselves. I'll tell you a quick story that I heard very recently. And as he was telling a few stories of Chinman, and that this story I thought I should share here because it'll really make things clear. There was an old couple, and the lady, as usual, not to standardize women, but the ladies like to crib about this and that and everything around. So she was looking out of her window and she's saying, look at our neighbors. They don't know how to wash their clothes. How dirty that lady's clothes are, and she's hanging those dirty clothes outside. And the man didn't say anything. Again, the next day, she was looking out of the window, meddling in the neighbor's business again. Oh my God, how dirty everything in their house is. Just look, it's so dirty. They don't clean their house only. Again, the third day, the same thing. The fourth day, the fifth day, she looks out and she was like shocked. And she said, oh my God, everything is so clean. The clothes are sparkling white. The house is clean. The yards are clean. I think they can hear me telepathically. And the husband is like, no, they don't hear you telepathically. I just washed our windows. So that's what the Bhagavad Gita does. You know, our windows are dirty and we look at the world and we see it so filthy and we keep saying this is bad and that is bad. But until we wash our own windows, we will never have a clear view of what actually is outside. And that is what the Bhagavad Gita does for us. Another thing of how he told the stories of uh, the kittens trying to catch those 15 kittens. In the Western world, we say, right, all ducks in a row. It's impossible to have those ducks in a row. It's like you have 9 ducks in the row. By the time you're going behind the 10th one, the ninth one goes away. So, how much ever we try, every single morning, 10 things that are not aligned to what we want them to be is going to be the real picture of our lives. So that's another thing that the Bhagavad Gita makes us understand. There are verses and verses, especially chapter 2 has beautiful verses to exemplify this again. And then another thing that I loved what Rajesh ji said was Mala Vikshepa Avarna is not only something we need to handle on the spiritual path. It's not only something to handle, reaching self realization, but even our material goals. I would say, even to keep up with the discipline of getting up in the morning and exercising, these three have to be handled. So we can't wait. We look forward to really discussing these things in detail with you so that you understand how these are the three things that are impeding every single goal in our life, material or spiritual. Um, Beautifully covered the three yogas. And again, we can't wait till we actually get to those chapters and talk about it. But just simply for the first lesson that we finished on this introduction of the three yogas, I'd just like to share this and finish off. That Karma Yoga, what is Karma Yoga for? It is basically to scrub down the ego. So anything that we do in our life in the name of karma, build orphanages, teach classes like this, or write books, or whatever else we are doing, if it is not scrubbing down that ego, if it is not, reducing that aham, that astitva, it's not karma yoga. So very, very easy way to see whether you are doing karma yoga or not is your that ahem becoming less and less and merging into everything that is around us. Upasana yoga, just the simple act of recognizing divinity in all. Once we start recognizing divinity in all, not just in human beings, but in everything, even in the circumstances that we face, we will begin to understand that we are practicing bhakti yoga and we don't get offended by so many things. So with that vikshepa, that agitation obviously automatically comes down. And jnana yoga, I think nobody defines it better than Shankaracharya in his Bhaja Govindam, where he says nitya nitya viveka vichara. That's all that jnana yoga is. Not learning the Bhagavad Gita front to back to front, not becoming erudite scholarships, but through these classes, if we are able to recognize the real from the unreal, what we need to invest in and what we need to turn away from. That's it. We have started walking the path of Jnana Yoga. And of course, we'll get into these yogas in very greater depths as we go along so that we can each connect to one aspect of it, work hard at that, and master it. Thank you so much.
So now the question is, how am I going to study this Bhagavad Gita? Lot of people, most of the people in this call, and millions of people around the world, they look upon the Bhagavad Gita as something great. A lot of people have Bhagavad Gita in their puja room, or some people have it in their pocket. Some people keep that in their bedroom, at work, meaning I've seen Gita in their work. But how are we going to use this great scripture? And what should I do to understand this Bhagavad Gita? Because remember, one thing we said in the first lesson itself. The approach of the Gita is not merely believing in. Blind faith is not what we require here. What we require here is an understanding. So for understanding the Bhagavad Gita, the Gita itself or the system of Vedanta itself gives out a beautiful methodology. So let's try to cover that as the next topic. So let's continue. So the first thing is, how can I unlock the potential of the Bhagavad Gita? We all revere the Gita, as I said. A lot of people, and as time goes by, more people have reverence for Gita. It's good to see that. A lot of people praise Gita, a lot of people try to promote Gita, and they put quote on the from the Gita, etc. And various people engage with Gita in a different level, right? Some people just recite the Gita. I'm not saying that it is bad. It is definitely good. It has its own advantage. And some people put Gita in a like a red color booth and they put flowers on top of the Gita. That is what they do. Every day they worship Gita like a mother. And some people use it for academic study, right? Oh my God, the poetry is fantastic. How this is composed is fantastic. Some people just extract the management technique from the Bhagavad Gita. And some people use this as a consolation tool. I know a lot of people, when they have a problem, they go to Gita, randomly open a page, that verse is going to give some consolation to them. The question is this the real usage of the Gita? All these use cases are valid. Yes, Gita can be used as a prayer, it can be used as a means of worship, it can be used as a scholarly material, it can be used as a tool for occasional consolation when I get into trouble, and a mere intellectual understanding. Anybody with a little bit of effort can understand Gita. It's not a rocket science or anything like that. If you put a systematic study, anybody can repeat the verses of the Gita, and even you can teach Gita a little bit. So the intellectual understanding is not that different. So that such scholarly understanding, how far it can take us. Please understand that this book is a manual of transformation. If that transformation is not happening in me, the study of the Gita is useless. So why should I study physics? I study physics to understand physics. Why should I study Gita? If you say that to understand the Gita, that study is useless. Krishna himself is saying that. You're studying the Gita to understand yourself and connect yourself with the overall universe. And if that purpose is not happening, the study of this Gita is not reaching its full potential. I won't say that it is useless. It will have its own benefit. But if you want to really take advantage of this great scripture, it's not just a religious scripture which can be used for a prayer. You need to understand that it's a manual that transforms the life. Let's say that if you have a GPS system in your hand and you're going for a long journey, or let's take the different example. Let's say that you have a map. If you sit and study the map, you say that, okay, I need to take, for going to New York, I need to take the turnpike, I need to take this exit, I should not take that exit, and I can verbally talk about that. But if I don't undertake that journey, what is the value? I can consider as a scholar of the map, but I cannot reach my destination. So Gita, understand that it is from mere recitation of the Gita. The goal of the Gita is a transformation of the human being, not in one dimension. Don't think that the Gita is going to transform you only in the spiritual world. The Gita is going to make you a better person. The Gita is going to improve your physical health. The Gita is going to improve your mental health. The Gita is going to make your social wellness better. The Gita is going to connect you with the other people better. And the Gita is going to eventually connect you to the higher. So this should be the goal in studying the Bhagavad Gita. It is one of the most underutilized scriptures, I would say. So this is one simple illustration I was trying to make. So if you just use a supercomputer, just for arithmetic calculation, yes, the supercomputer can be used for an arithmetic calculation, but it is a complete underutilization of the potential. So Gita, which has a potential to transform our life end to end, if it is used just for a consolation tool, yes, it will work. The supercomputer can be used as an arithmetic for doing the arithmetic, but it can do much bigger task. It can help you to change your life completely. So that should be our approach. The scripture is often underutilized. So Swami Ranganathananda, one of the greatest master of the Ramakrishna order. He was the 13th president. In one of his book, he narrates a beautiful incident. Immediately after the freedom of India, there was a governor of Andhra Pradesh. His name was Governor Chowdhury. So when Swami Ranganathananda visited him, at that time there was a lot of problem with the Naxals and all those people, and he was extremely stressed. And Swami Ranganathananda found a small Gita on his table, and he said, "Okay, do you read Gita?" He said, "Yeah, when some problems comes, when I feel very much stressed, I take this book and open a verse here and there, I get some consolation." He said, "That's a complete underutilization of the scripture. This is a scripture which can transform you completely." So then he describes a beautiful conversation between this governor and Swamiji, and eventually this governor found that value of the Bhagavad Gita, and later he became a great exponent of the Bhagavad Gita. There are a lot of people who got completely transformed. I explained this last week by quoting several examples. This is there in Mahatma Gandhiji's commentary of the Bhagavad Gita. A person, he said, like, this is a fantastic life transforming guide which can transform a person called Mohandas Karamchand to the stature of Mahatma Gandhi. If I became anything, if there is any value in what I preach, it is from the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita. So that type of transformation can happen. It can completely transform us. It can make us fit to face the world if you study it properly. But unfortunately, most of the times it is underutilized. So that's what we wanted to understand here. How can we use the scripture effectively? So how can I use the Gita? The Gita Dhyanam gives a beautiful example. The Gita Dhyanam compares Gita with a milk, with some milk, milked from the cow of Upanishad. So now tell me, you wanted to use that milk. If you sit and worship that milk, if you sit and praise that milk, what value that milk is going to add to you? So for you to utilize that milk, you need to consume that milk, and you need to make sure that your body is absorbed that milk. Because if that milk is not digested, it becomes a toxin. So you need to make sure that you're consuming it properly, and you need to ensure that that is digested. So how can I consume the Gita properly? Mere praising or worship is definitely not going to give the intended benefit. It is definitely going to help me, but not the intended benefit. So please think about this. Sarvopanishado gavo doktha gopala nandanaha partho vatsa sudir bhokta. We need to consume it, and we need to make sure that it is digested. This is how we should approach Gita. So for that, a methodical approach is prescribed for studying and mastering the Bhagavad Gita. It's a three-step approach. It is known as Shravanam, a systematic study, and Mananam, it is an analysis of what I studied and connecting the dots, and finally Nidithyasanam, which is called internalization. So let's try to understand each one of this quickly. So Shravanam means, let me just explain you very simply. You need to learn Gita with the guidance of a proper master for a sufficient period of time. This is very important. You need to learn the Bhagavad Gita's teaching from a qualified teacher for a sufficient period of time. This is very important. Without that, you may get confused because there are so many obstacles in the study of the Gita, which we are going to cover next week. That is why the study of the Bhagavad Gita, especially on the initial stage, should be guided by a qualified teacher, a teacher without any agenda. A teacher is not going to promote his agenda. No, a teacher who is well versed in Gita and who is interested to share that knowledge with the people. So such study is very important. So once again, Shravanam means studying systematically the Bhagavad Gita under the guidance of a qualified master for a sufficient period of time. Some people switch from master to master, from book to book. That will not help, which we are going to talk next week. So we understand that the first step of studying Bhagavad Gita is systematic study, because any subject matter, whether it is artificial intelligence or physics, you want to study, you need to follow this. You need to learn that from a qualified teacher for a sufficient period of time. But mere study, because I said it has to be consumed and it has to be digested. You need to make sure that it is not merely believed in. So, whatever you study, you need to make sure that you are connecting the dots, your understanding. That is what is called analysis. Whatever, after just you listen to the talk, and if you don't put any self effort, that will not help you. So, you need to make sure that you are reflecting the study. You're trying to understand what you studied. You're connecting the dots and making sure that if there is any doubts, you're having some conversation with the teacher or the fellow students, making sure that you understand what you study, right? The Gita, the approach of the Gita is thou shalt believe is not the approach of the Gita. You need to understand. Krishna always try to help you to understand rather than studying. So at the end of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna tells Arjuna, I taught everything I wanted to cover. And now you need to put your assessment and take what is good for you. Never ever we said that thou shalt believe because I said. And that is very important. Swami Chinmayananda used to say, right, you should not take anything without proper understanding. You cannot blindly believe anything. Because Gita's beauty is that it is not just giving you the message, it gives you all the explanation related to an idea. So some of the ideas would be beyond logic, but one thing Krishna always makes sure is that nothing in the Gita is against the logic. And if I don't understand something, first try to correct that with the teacher because I might be missing something. So this is what is known as Mananam. And the third step is known as internalization through practice. It is called Nidithyasanam. So Nidithyasanam means even if I know that this is the correct thing, my habits, my current habits force me to think otherwise. For example, right, when I see the sun, I think that the sun is going around the earth, even though my understanding is that I know that, okay, it's the earth that is moving around the sun. So sometimes what happens, the habits forces me to think in certain direction. So you wanted to make sure that whatever you listened or studied through Shravanam and whatever you understood through Mananam, it is internalized. So there is a set of practices are given in the Gita, which is to make sure that whatever you listened and whatever you understood, it becomes part of your core being. And tomorrow onwards, whatever thoughts, whatever actions comes out of me is going to reflect the fragrance of what I learned. This is known as Nidhi. So the Gita needs to be the how to study Gita, that is through Shravanam, proper study with a master for a sufficient period of time. Mananam, which is analysis and connecting the dots and clearing all the doubts and understanding the teaching rather than merely believing in. And the last one is called Nidithyasanam, which is to make sure that I'm internalizing whatever I learned. This is the step. So let me pause here. Avanti, you want to add anything on this, how to study Gita?
So, rightly said, even if we do all these classes every day with all our attention and all our diligence and all our sincerity, if it is not bringing about a transformation, it is really of no use. And a patent question that's asked in all the classes is, how do I know that I'm progressing? I'm doing all this, but who is there to check what are my milestones? So just some of the tips that I thought was, like I said before as well, if your ego is being scrubbed down with each class, at each class you're able to step back a little and allow others to go in the front. That's one thing. Generally less agitation in life. That vikshepa, if it just comes down, not like you after this class tomorrow morning, you're not going to get up with any agitation. But if that's happening in your life, that's another good gauge. Less dependency on others. Just now, our entire life, like puppets, we are in other people's hands. Somebody smiles at us, we are happy. Somebody frowns at us, we are sad. So the less dependency we have for our joys and our sorrows, that's another step towards progress. General cheerfulness in life. Roam about with faces that as if we are just attending funerals from morning to night. That's not the way to be. Studying the Bhagavad Gita properly, if you're studying it nicely, 100% you're going to have a smile on your face, at least all the hours that you're awake. And one very big tip, which I am trying to experiment with, when you hit the pillow at night, you should be able to sleep within a minute. If you're tossing and turning, study harder, contemplate a bit harder. So that's another gauge of whether you're progressing or not. When I was doing my Hatha Yoga teacher's training, my teacher used to always say, they'll come for a stretch, but if you do it right, they'll go with a lot more. So all of us are coming here to study the Gita, but if we can go with this transformation, then the author trio's work for you all and for ourselves is kind of done. So that's one of the things. The three things that we discussed here, Shravanam, Mananam, and Nididhyasana, just quickly going over that. Once for Shravanam, this once a week class is not enough. I hope all of you all have bought this book because you all should have this book in possession. It's not a sales pitch, I promise you, but so beautifully the slides have been created, so beautifully it's been explained. If through the week, few paragraphs you can read on what's been covered, by the time you come for the next class, this portion has gone into your brain. Otherwise, it's just like you're coming here, you have a headache, take one Panadol, oh, lovely, love the stories, love the examples, and go back. It's not going to bring about that transformation. So that Shravanam cannot be only Sunday morning class. It has to be the reading that you're doing through the week till the next class. Then the Mananam. Mananam is contemplation constantly. Practically how to do it, pitch it against everything that is happening in your life. Everything that is happening in your life should slowly start reminding you about a word or a sentence that you've heard in this class. There's one beautiful Bollywood song which says, "तू इस तरह से मेरी जिंदगी में शामिल है, जहां भी देखूं तेरी महफिल है." So literally everything in life that you see from here forward should remind you of something that you have studied in the Gita. And this particular commentary has been designed like that. That we've tried to cover all our daily practices that we engage in. So it will remind you of something or the other that we have studied. So that is the kind of mananam that we need to engage in. And Nididhyasana actually means actual experience. Now, we may be very close to self and self-realization. I don't know where each one is, or we may be very far away from it. But for now, what is Nididhyasana? Relentless application. Wherever we can apply whatever we have learned over here, that is going to be our Nididhyasana. So you have to keep doing that day in and day out till the teaching becomes you. Doesn't become a intellectual parroting that you're doing to others. Many people, students, when they come to the Gita first, they study something and then they start finding faults with everybody else. No, it's about our own transformation. So we have to sit with that first. And the best way to put all this Shravanam, Mananam, and Nididhyasana together, it's just two brilliant ways to do it. One is daily morning study, going over your notes if you're taking any in this class and reading this book, please, every single morning, even if it's for 10-15 minutes. And in the night, just doing a 5-minute introspection of your day. That introspection just to see whether you've been able to apply what you have studied throughout your day. Do this starting today, and you will see as we progress through this class, by the end of the chapter 1, by the time we finish this book, you would have seen some dramatic transformation and you'll be left amazed. Thank you.
That's an awesome way of summarizing it, Avanti. And let's conclude this session. So today we covered 2 topics. One is the spiritual roadmap of the Bhagavad Gita. We said it focuses on 3 major obstacles. Mala, which is the mental impurities, Vikshepa, which is the mental turbulence, and Avarana, which is the veil of ignorance. And the practices are Karma Yoga, Upasana Yoga, and Jnana Yoga. And we said that we emphasized using the Bhagavad Gita truly to its potential, not just as a little bit here and there spiritual consolation or as a religious textbook. It's a transformation manual of your life. So go beyond religious, every other constraints, and use this as a manual of life. It is applicable to every human being. And the approach is study with a master for a sufficient period of time, and then contemplate, analyze, and make sure that all the doubts are clarified. And finally, make sure that you're doing the Nididhyasanam, which is internalization. With that, we can conclude today's session. We will do the closing prayer, and then we will have the Q&A for next 15 minutes.